So we're here talking to Ben Blackwell, who is the drummer for the Dirt Bombs, or was or is. I'm not sure what the status is. We'll find out about that. Also a solo artist, a music journalist, the White Stripes archivist, and co-founder of the Third Man Records. Did I get everything?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, I feel like I can retire now.
You should possibly.
Like a lot.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for talking to me. We're here to talk about mostly the Stooges, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's some kind of the last live Stooges show that happened with the original band back in August of 1970 is being issued by Third Man. So from what I understand, the tapes have just mysteriously appeared somewhere. Can you shed some light on the situation?
Yeah, I'm not really entirely sure the nature of why they were actually recorded. So there was a film crew at this show, at this festival. It's called Goose Lake Festival.
Right.
And there's kind of like a half-baked documentary that never really got released, that has some of this footage and some I don't think this audio is connected to that.
Right.
It doesn't sound what exists of the Stooges audio from the documentary and these tapes doesn't. It seems like they're different sources.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, there's a box of tapes that turned up in Michigan that were labeled Goose Lake. And there's an engineer by the name of James Casilli who worked in Michigan back in the 60s through the 80s or whatever. It was, he was the one who recorded them, and he's passed away. But his son, Joshua Rogers, he is the one that brought the tapes to Third Man. So I didn't have to track these down with a map and, go through smoke-filled rooms to try to find the location. They came to us, which is makes my job a lot easier. I'm not against the digging and the treasure hunt, but treasure walking through the front door is a lot. It's just a lot more convenient.
Definitely.
So Josh brought these to us and said, "Hey, I don't even know if there's music on these tapes, to be perfectly honest, but I know what Third Man does, and I know what I have respect for you guys, and you have a good reputation. Is this something you guys would be interested in exploring?" And I'm dyed-in-the-wool Stooges fan from the past 23 years, I guess. I think I first heard him when I was 14 or 15. So I was, I already knew the lore of this show and was, I was biting my lip that this was happening. I couldn't believe it. That just the opportunity, just to hear it, even if it never came out, just to be able to hear the recording, like I would have this experience that not everyone else could have.
Yeah, very cool. So what did you think when you heard it?
Jaw on the floor, like just to be, because I'm a realist, so I half expected that it would be a recording, but it would be a bad recording.
Right.
So it's something like you can hear the performance, but you would never release it.
Right.
That's like if I had to put my money, that's what I would have expected. So to turn it on and without any EQ or balance or anything, just turning it on first off, and it's like, wow, this is pretty clear. It's not crystal clear, but I mean, considering it's a tape from 1970 that was in a basement for 40 years, I was just like, I was geeked, and so the longer I listen, I also realize it's good enough that it could be released. So then I'm thinking like, all right, how do we make this happen? How do we do this? What's the approach? And luckily we had done right around that time, we had just put out a book called Total Chaos, which is basically Iggy Pop's oral history of the Stooges.
Right.
And we put that out on our Third Man Books imprint. So we'd already had contact and dealt with his management. So when we kind of hit like the right point, I tagged him and said, "Hey, I think you're going to be up in Detroit. We should meet up." I was going to be in Detroit at the same time, and like, I would share something with you. Didn't show my hand too soon, and sat in our studio in Detroit and played him some tracks. It's a great thing. I like got one track mastered. Like I'll get TVI mastered and play that for him, kind of just, give him a taste. And we listened, and I don't know how excited he's supposed to be, or, I don't know the guy well enough to like read him. Like what is he going to be, stone faced? Is he going to be drooling? What? I played TBI and he's like, play me more.
That's what you want to hear.
I don't have any more. He's like, play me more. He's like significantly impressed by TBI.
Excellent.
I said, well, I've got the transfer, but it's not EQ'd, it's not mastered. He's like, I don't care, play me more. And so I played him probably, 3/4 of the record while he was sitting there, because he wanted to hear it. And that was the, the point where my confidence shot up a lot. So if this guy's into it, I think we're doing pretty good.
Now, there's quite a bit of discussion about this particular show, because it's the last one that the bass player Dave Alexander played with Stooges, and some discussion as whether or not he was plugged in, whether he was playing, whether he was even conscious during the show. So do you have any insight into that?
Well, I mean, I think the tape speaks for itself. There's bass on every song.
All right.
There's high points and there's low points. So, Loose, the opening song, which isn't terribly complex. It doesn't feel like he ever really finds where he's supposed to be in Loose. Each chorus, there's like a key change at the beginning of each chorus, or quasi-chorus. It's not really a chorus to Loose. It's just kind of Iggy saying, I'm loose.
Right.
He misses, he never hits the spot.
Right.
He goes into it too early. Which is a bummer, being the first song on the album. I'm definitely like, if I have a fear of all of this, of trying to get the public to get on board with this live recording, it's my biggest fear is like, gosh, I think the worst song they played is the first one.
There you go. They got to get warmed up.
Yeah, exactly. Make it like a -1 on the track list.
Gotcha.
And then Turn Down on the Street is song 2. But yeah, I mean, Dave plays bass, like 100%, no doubt about it.
Cool.
And I think, from my perspective, the songs like Dirt and Funhouse, I consider bass to be like the lead instrument on those.
Sure,
it's definitely kind of the driving focus on those. And I think those are the two best songs, that like the best performance wise.
There you go. And so the concert is pretty much the Funhouse album, is that right?
It is. So Funhouse was originally supposed to be the one kind of like decision, stylistic decision that the record label made, was they thought the record should start with Down on the Street.
Okay.
Whereas the band intended it to be just a document of how they performed live, where Loose was the first song. And so if you listen to this Funhouse album, starts Down on the Street and then Loose, and the live show, even when they started doing reunion shows, they would open up with Loose, seemingly, I think, every night. So that's that, and then basically all the way through, we have it labeled as LA Blues on this record, which LA Blues was originally titled Freak, and was just meant to be kind of their end of the set, just free for all. They've got saxophone blowing, guitar feedback. The drums aren't playing any real meter or time. They're kind of just all over the place. But on this recording, it kind of falls into a groove at a certain point. Like, you can only do that so much. You can only freak out like so much if you're not really like, you're not Sun Ra's orchestra,
Right. Yeah.
And so like invariably after a certain point, like everyone kind of ends up on the same page, and you feel a little bit of a groove to it. And so there's a previous live recording of only like 2 weeks later. The band is called Have Some Fun Live at Ngano's, which is a different lineup. It's got Zeke Zettner on bass, and it's got Billy Cheatham on second guitar. But it's basically the same set, except for I don't think they label it as LA Blues. They label it as Have Some Fun, which is kind of like, it seems like it's just a jam that they're making up, which is the same thing that happens on this Goose Lake show. They kind of end the set chaos and evolving into a jam, and then depending on who you ask, seemingly the plug gets pulled on the band. But even that is not a guarantee. That is up to interpretation.
Right. And musical history and legacy and all that. I'm curious, when you were preparing this, have you managed to find anybody who was at the show to talk to about it? Because it's 50 years ago.
I'm going to yell at Dave Lang terribly because I thought he was sharing the liner notes with everyone. The liner notes are great. I love Dave Lang, so no, but no, the liner notes were written by a woman, Jan Uleski, who is a writer for Cream magazine, who was
yeah, I remember. I read Cream religiously in the 70s. It was the best rock magazine ever.
Yes, so she was there, and so she wrote the liner notes, and we tracked down a bunch of people who were there. And of the people who were there, like half of them had memories of it. So like whittle that all down. So there's remembrances and recollections of
cool.
Probably, I don't know, maybe about 10 or so people who were there. And we lucked out too. Jan said like the power of Cream. There's a local Detroit magazine called the Metro Times. And they had done an article, like a reminisce on Goose Lake back in like 2008 or so.
Right.
Just out of nowhere. And they had, the writer, who I think was a freelancer, had interviewed Ron Ashton just about Goose Lake.
Right.
And I had found that piece. I asked Jan, I said, do you know this writer? She's like, I'll see if I am on Facebook or whatever. And see, maybe he has the recording of that interview, or maybe he has a transcript. And she said, man, the power of Cream magazine, this guy was super, he like whatever you need.
Sure.
And so we had access to this full Ron Ashton speaking only about Goose Lake, which is so valuable because he's passed away.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, Scott Ashton himself is pretty stoic, not the most verbose kind of guy. But Ron was such a raconteur and loved telling stories. So that kind of all peppers in what in those liner notes, thankfully.
Excellent. And who else was on? Because from what I read somewhere, they referred to that festival as kind of like Detroit's Woodstock. So were there a lot of other Detroit bands on the lineup?
Yeah. So Seeger played, MC5 played, the Frost played. Peter Walker, who wasn't from Detroit, but was like kind of stationed in Detroit at that time. He did a set of all the other recordings. Peter Walker was the one that resonated with me the most. The tapes that were there, it was scattershot. It wasn't everyone. So there's no recording of the Faces. John Baker, he's friends with the international Faces expert. Right. He reached out to me. He's like, do you have a tape of the Faces set? I was like, no, I'm sorry, man. But like, the James Gang and Chicago, New York Rock and Roll Ensemble and Mountain, those were all recorded. But for me, it's kind of all, it's the Stooges were the only thing that I would really, really, truly have an investment in emotionally. And there's a weird write-up from the Ann Arbor Argus. It's kind of seemed to be a turning point in festival culture where the minister of culture of the White Panther Party at the time, who I'm pretty sure was Frank Bach of the Up, he criticizes the festival pretty strongly for just, saying that the national headliners, the bands that weren't from Detroit, got paid like 4 or 5 times the Detroit bands, and and they got treated really nice, and like the Detroit bands kind of got, didn't even get trailers or whatever, but also just calling out, like saying like the only thing that was happening at this festival was the music. There was no political activations of like how to start your own commune or how to all this other stuff, and kind of calling out like
because this was 1970, Vietnam was happening. There were race problems back then. Let's face it.
All that stuff. I mean, all stuff that you would say about a festival now. Like, you can't just play music. You have to do other things.
Yeah.
To see that same argument posited 50 years ago, I was like, wow. Like, I mean, how much stuff are we still dealing with that we were dealing with 50 years ago? I was like, wow,
That's the
that
fact,
too, on
yeah.
such a microscopic thing of how music festivals take place was really interesting.
Yeah. Now, as far as the release that's happening in August on Third Man, what format is it taking? I assume it's on vinyl. So
yeah, we're vinyl, CD, and digital download streaming. So
big booklet, the whole thing.
Yeah, it would be very easy to kind of fall down a rabbit hole for
right.
There's posters and there's flyers, and they did like bulletins. My favorite part about the packaging is they have they had like a pamphlet that they handed out at Goose Lake as part of like the White Panther Party crew.
Right.
Maybe not them explicitly, but they did like a kind of like a guide to Goose Lake, and they had a column called Dopascope, which was here's the going prices for the different kinds of drugs available.
Right.
And there's this virulent anti-heroin, like heroin is the drug of the man. It's the police have have infiltrated, and they want you to do heroin, but like mushrooms and marijuana and hash, like that's those are those drugs are cool.
Right.
Which, not having lived through the counterculture through the 60s, is like you kind of, the way it kind of almost gets painted to you is like, well, drugs are drugs, whatever, it's, if you're cool with one, you're cool with the other. But
right.
As you get older and you experience, you're around it, we're like, no, it's not all or nothing. There's shades of gray through it all.
Right.
So to hear that in the 60s, 70s counterculture, it's like, wow, that's really like eye-opening for me.
Cool. Well, while I've got you here, I should just ask you what else is happening with Third Man. What kind of things are you excited about? What releases do you have coming up? Because I'm obviously a record collector, so I need to know.
Yeah, just a little bit of record collector. We did. We are shipping right now. We did a fan club package. I'm only mentioning this because you're in New Zealand, but we did a fan club package that was focusing on the year 2000 for the White Stripes.
Oh, okay.
And so that was, of course, as everyone knows, the first when they ventured down to New Zealand.
That's true.
And so we've got a couple of things from that tour included in the set. They did a recording session at Corduroy Studios in Melbourne back then.
Right.
That had never been released. They recorded 2 songs that had never seen the light of day. So I was kind of happy to do that. Cool. As kind of their archivist, that's my realm. That's the stuff that falls in my lap.
Right.
But man, we're doing. We average like putting out a record a week. We're reissuing the second and third albums by That Dog later this week, which is the first band I ever saw live. It was like,
cool.
Like super like personal investment. Like,
yeah.
Really love those. Like rode my bike to go buy my copy of Totally Crushed Out.
Right.
So we're doing that. We've got some Screaming Jay Hawkins reissues.
Do you still have? I got my man here, Joshua Headley was on.
Yes.
He's been up here and played. Is he still with the label?
I don't know what he's doing right now. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't. I think he's working on something, but I don't think we're putting it out.
Okay.
That's my like tangential. I think, don't 100% quote me on that.
All righty, I won't.
But I don't know who the hell is working on anything in the current state.
Right. And what do you see happening with the record biz and the live music biz in general once we get through, or once you guys get through this stuff that's going on in the States?
Live is in much more peril than recorded.
Yeah,
I think everyone agrees on that. But I mean, there's no precedent here. Like, what can you refer to? It's uncharted territory, and how are you gonna? I have no idea, man. I'm just grateful that live performances are a smaller aspect of our overall outreach. We put on live shows. We have bands that tour, but the fact that live shows aren't happening right now isn't catastrophic for us.
Right.
We've got enough diversification in regards to, we have storefronts, and our mail order, really our direct to customer mail order has been really, really serving us well in the past 4 months.
Cool.
Overperforming comparatively to last year. So shit, man, that's you
Gotcha.
hope that in a regular year, let alone in a pandemic. My wife just handed me some champagne after.
Nice one. Can't beat that. That's all right. Thank you very much. Enjoy your hopefully everything gets better in the States than it has been in the last few months or so. The November's coming.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we'll just keep buying records.
I'm happy with that.
All right. We'll see you later. Thank you.
Marty.
Bye-bye.